Welcome back to the Steven and Steven Show. I'm Steven.
I'm Steven. This is episode 11.
We're into double figures now.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats earlier. Do you realize we're probably going to hit 1,000 downloads this year? I know That doesn't sound like a lot. To some of you, that might sound like all in a day's work in your perfect podcast land.
Yeah.
But I'm just here to tell you, we did not really do this for anybody except ourselves. So the fact that, there's I don't know, people in the UK that listen to this every week, it's still a little overwhelming for us. So,
I mean, it's a real thing. I would say that we have some fans. I think that's reasonable to say. I'm still amazed at how many people who do not interact with us across our platforms, even though we've practically begged people to do so, but yet they still listen and have comments and commentary about our podcast. And so I guess to those people, I say thank you, but could you just...
Where you at?
Yeah, where you at, dog?
WYA is what the kids say. Where you at?
I thought you would find this entertaining, but I just had a conversation with your nephew, your godson, my son, Jackson. And the conversation started like this. When you get out of the shower, you should make it a point to not let your mother or your sister see your private parts. And
how did that go? How was that received?
So the look on his face, why? Like it was like, I don't understand this logic. I had to explain to him that he's an 8-year-old boy now. We are completely out of the baby phase, like top to bottom. Yeah. And so even his mother is like, oof, like, we really got to do this? Like,
it's a little much. Yeah.
Maybe a robe, maybe
something, a towel around the waist.
Yeah. But his comfortability with nudity, particularly on his own perspective,
his own nudity,
is shocking. Shocking is the word I would use. Well, like, dude, you have a 6-year-old sister.
Your nephew is not far behind him.
No,
in his own lack. I mean, okay, so we have people at our house very regularly.
Yeah.
And I believe that every single person who's been to our house more than once has seen Joel fully naked at this point in time. And Joel is fascinated with his own nudity, sure. But in general, I think just what clothes are meant for. He's in this phase where he pulls his shirt up and covers his face and thereby like exposes his entire torso. We've gotten reports from babysitters recently that he's discovered mooning. It's just it's an interesting season we're in. But this is maybe the most humbling thing. He has our bathroom, our master bathroom is French doors. And this is my biggest complaint about our house. There's no lock on the doors leading into our bathroom from the bedroom. We've got a little room for the toilet and there's a lock on that room, but the shower, the sinks, the bathtub, it's all just there behind these French doors in our bathroom.
They're just exposed.
I'm taking a shower the other day and Joel comes in and, like there's steam in the shower and stuff. And that kid puts his face right up against the glass of the shower. And I said, you've got to step back right now. And he just laughed hysterically. And then he started pointing and laughing. Yeah. And I said, look, this is not okay. All right. Like I'm not okay with you pointing and laughing while I'm in the shower. There's a lot to unpack there. I get it. He also, I've been making the comment when he pulls his shirt up, I'm like, okay, we get it. You have a better body than me. Can you just stop rubbing it in?
We don't appreciate
the kid just runs back and forth. He's burning calories constantly. So he's like kind of cut for a 6-year-old.
Sure.
It's really annoying, actually.
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, these kids don't have jobs. Like they don't contribute anything. They just have an entire life where they can just dedicate it to watching their iPads and working out, doing cardio 24/7.
Yeah. And Joel is he's an active participant. He's not just a spectator when it comes to the iPad. He will watch whatever it is that he's watching and then get up and act it out as he's watching it. So it's a full contact sport a lot of times.
Sure.
He's moving, he's jumping, he's spinning. He's recently adopted parkour. I don't know where he caught that from. Wow. But if there is a surface in our house that he can climb to and jump off of, he'll do it. And my favorite thing is that when he jumps, he yells, "Parkour!" So
yeah, the randomness that these kids can go. My son watches. So my son is very interested in the NBA, but he doesn't have the attention span to sit through a full NBA game. So what he does is he basically,
honestly, so
yeah, he watches YouTube highlights of like the week's best plays, and he does this like religiously, like daily. He's got a circulation of like 12 to 15 videos that he watches, and their current plays. It's like, which I look back on this, I'm like, okay, so basically he's watching Sports Center like I did circa 1996. You know, that's what he's doing. So I can't hate on the kid. But because of it, he knows a lot of NBA players' names, and he just randomly blurts out random names. So tonight we had on the movie before that, we were letting him watch like 15 minutes of the Muppets Christmas Carol, and they're like introducing like Ebenezer Scrooge and and then Jax, my 8-year-old, is just like Jaylen Brown. Like, what do you mean Jaylen Brown? He's like Ben Simmons, Luka Doncic. Like, you're just saying NBA players' names. There's no context for this, and it certainly doesn't relate to the Muppets. So
at least they're mostly good players he's talking about.
Yeah, he's got a few, and he's very motivated, obviously, by highlights. So he doesn't watch like who the bad defenders are. And
that's fair.
But I mean, he's 8; he could do that.
Dennis Smith Jr.
Dennis Smith Jr. Yeah. His going back though to the previous conversation about these children's nudity, and how we need to clean that up and make my home more of a PG environment rather than the adult version that apparently it's become. We have a daughter as well, and she's very good about bath towels and robes. Her problem is she doesn't realize there's a bathroom door. And so tonight, Jax comes out of the shower. My oldest comes out of the shower, and he doesn't have anything on but a smile. And he's just running all over the house and making his comments and da-da-da-da. And so I'm in the kitchen. So I hear him running, but I hear my daughters being like, "You need to put clothes on. That's disgusting. I don't want to see you naked. You're my brother. I don't want to see your bottom. Ew." And I'm like, okay, this kid is out here again. Like, what's going on? So I walk down the hallway, only to find that my son is actually in his room. He's not wearing clothes, but my daughter it is his room. He's allowed to do that in his room. My daughter is yelling at him from the toilet, and she's not wearing any clothes either, and the door's open. And so I walk down the hall, and I'm like, what is going on in this house? Like, what is happening? This is a circus. And first off, everybody needs to put clothes on immediately. And second, if you're going to yell at somebody, at least close the door, like while you're not wearing clothes. So it's a real problem.
Yeah, we have one kid.
And that's that second one. It'll really mess with you, because now you have a whole nother opinion involved.
Fair. And we've talked about this a lot, having Charity and I, my wife, and I've talked about having another kid, and there's the thing that I don't understand as a parent of one child, that what if I like the second kid better than the first? But then also it's like, what if I don't like the second as much as I like the first? And I mean, when you have one kid, I think it's fair. Like, you just don't have a concept of loving two kids the same amount, but differently, because they're different personalities.
Sure.
And I just don't know that I want to try. I just don't know that I feel like having my one kid is the equivalent of having like 4 kids for somebody else.
Well, you can love your kids.
Everything.
Yeah, you can love your kids equally. I don't know that you can like them all the same, or at least don't know if you can like them the same in certain environments, because there's environments where I really prefer one child to the other, that I don't prefer.
But then in others, do you find yourself preferring the other child?
Oh, 100%. Here, I'll give you an example. At my work the other day, we had a Christmas tree lighting, and my oldest son was asked to come down onto the stage and help flip the imaginary switch to turn on the Christmas tree. He was one of like 5 kids that was asked. And it was because he was wearing a big, dumb red Santa hat. Like he stood out like a sore thumb. And so they were like, oh, yeah, you. Well, if you know my oldest, he is not interested in public spotlights at all like that. So he immediately started crying like waterworks. And in that moment, I was just like, oh, I love this kid, but I really wish my daughter was called on, because she would have bolted down there, gone right up on stage, grabbed the microphone, done at least 2 numbers, and probably bowed at the end. So in that particular full curtsy, in that particular moment, I preferred the girl to the boy. But then you go to like regular places like restaurants, my son is way more inclined to like eat food and be flexible with what he's eating, where my daughter is more inclined to like, nope, I only require chicken nuggets and shrimp with butter and filet mignon.
Shrimp with butter?
Oh yeah, dude, she's got some white trash in her, like for real. Like this girl, we actually had shrimp with butter tonight for dinner, and homegirl put away 15 shrimp in a single setting.
I'm a little proud, actually.
She weighs 42 pounds, and she ate almost a third of her body weight.
She's a rail, man. That's impressive. Yeah, you know, I tell people all the time that kids is not something that you are ever prepared for.
No.
You know, we in our role here as pastors, we talk to a lot of young married people, and talking about kids and preparing for kids. One of the things we say pretty regularly is like, read the books, like have a, you know, whatever, pray about it, but you're never really ready till you're ready till it happens. You know what I mean? And the act of parenting itself has a way of preparing you on the job.
Yep.
You know, when we were pregnant, I say we were pregnant. I was not pregnant. I am though. And your wife can attest to this. I'm an excellent enabler for the cravings of pregnant women. Like when you want ice cream at 11:45, I got
do it.
I was brother-in-law of the year twice with those kids, because whatever she wanted and whatever her like wild middle of the night, middle of the day, middle of whatever, whenever the craving came, I was a willing participant in whatever thing she wanted.
You weren't there to teach self-discipline.
It's true. Well, so when we were pregnant with Joel, when Charity was pregnant with Joel, I guess I should say, whatever. You
contributed.
I did. I mean, it was partly me. But we went to these appointments, and I remember getting close to the end of the pregnancy, and Charity asking our doctor, who, by the way, his name is Dr. Thanos.
Ooh,
how cool is that?
That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
You'd never hear the end of it if my name, like if there was a doctor named Thanos. Oh, that'd be dope.
Really great. We got to like one of the last appointments, and we asked him. Charity said, "So, I mean, should we talk about our birthing plan?" And Charity, the doctor was like, "I mean, we could talk about it, but the baby's not going to know it, so I don't really see the point in it.
He's not going to listen."
Exactly. Yeah. And I just thought, like, that's a man who's seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
like
he's been through it.
Just, and to be honest with you, that kind of set the precedent for us with child raising. Like, you can make all kinds of good plans, but you got to understand that little ball of energy has to be a willing participant. And if they're not, like, you got to adjust. No. You got to figure out what works. You got to feed them butter, shrimp, or whatever it's called.
Shrimp with butter.
Like we're gonna go out to eat and have a healthy meal. Nope, shrimp with butter.
Shrimp with butter. That's what's happening. It's It's true though, because when you become a parent, you obviously have the way that your parents raised you. Like that was your first example. There's so many. This is a good thing to talk about. There's so many elements to this because you have the lens that you saw your parents through, mom and dad, that you saw them through your lens, and you have good things that you like about each person, and you have bad things that you like about each person. But then you bring in this other person into your life, your significant other, who has their version of parents, and they see their version of parents through their eyes, different perspective. But then you have to cross those because the way that you see your partner's parents may not be as inviting as the other partner sees your parents, and then vice versa. So you're looking at these examples before you through two different sets of lenses.
Right.
And then on top of that, you come down to the next level, which is kind of like your secondary parenting advice, which you get that from podcasts, or you get that from books, or everybody. Yeah. And look, if you're looking for parenting advice, there is no shortage of free parenting advice. I tell people this all the time. The second that you tell anybody that you're pregnant, you're going to be overwhelmed with free parenting advice. And
we actually tell people who are about to have a baby, and they ask us for parenting advice. I've told this to a few people now. I say, what's your best piece of parenting advice? And I say, don't listen to anyone's parenting
Don't listen to anybody. Yes. People will say, do you have any advice to be a new parent? No, I don't.
Because every kid's different.
Every kid is different.
Only you know how to be your kid's parent.
Yes.
And I will go to my grave saying that. You know, there are things we did that worked for Joel that honestly were a result of us trying everything else that people told us to try and it not working. We just stumbled upon what worked for us and what worked for him ultimately. And like at the end of the day, like the goal is a happy kid, a healthy kid. And, you know, we've been through stuff with Joel and, you know, the autism spectrum and things like that. And that's probably a conversation for another time. But we had to learn, even in the midst of that diagnosis, even in the midst of, okay, this is something that other people have experienced on some level. They're still not my kid's parent. They still don't know this kid like I do. And so I am going to lean into being the parent that for hook or crook, God chose to be his. And what works for us is what we're going to go with.
Well, and you know that child backwards and forwards in a way that somebody who's just being a distant observer doesn't know. Like, I remember one of the conversations that we had, you and I, whenever you were pregnant, when you and your wife were pregnant with your first, and our wives were pregnant at the same time. And
5 days apart. Those kids are 5 days apart.
5 days apart. So that was my second and your first. And I don't know if you remember, but I was telling you a lot about the wipe warmer. For these kids. And that was something that we had great success with for Jackson. Whenever he was a baby, was, you know, you had the wipe warmer, he's asleep and you have to change a diaper, and you don't go put a cold wet wipe on his butt. And then now suddenly he's all awake again. And there he goes. Like, the warm wipe was very comforting, and it kind of kept everybody resting and kept everybody calm. That didn't work for our daughter. It didn't work at all. And we realized that like 2 weeks into her new life. And so I just think you have, you know, the parents that are involved with these kids, they know them, they know the ins and outs of them. You know, my wife can hear both of our kids. They could be in a crowded room filled with 100 other kids, and she can hear both their voices from like across the room. Like, she can pick it out and follow, because she knows our kids. And so it's a little weird whenever people come up and they're like, oh, you know what you should do? You should do X, Y, Z. It's like, actually, you should shut up. You don't know.
Yeah. You know what you should do? Go home.
Yeah. Go home.
Mind your own business.
I do love people that don't have kids that like to volunteer.
Oh my gosh.
Especially the ones that go to school for like child education or like child behavior or something.
I read a book and I can tell you that.
Yes. And they're like, oh, this is what kids need to do. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you even a little bit. As a matter of fact, I wish you'd go to another building so we don't have to talk. So if
Excuse me.
If you're listening to this and you don't have children, give zero advice on parenting.
Zero opinion. Let me ask you this, because you mentioned earlier seeing like your view of parenting through the lens of your parents, and then obviously your spouse having the lens of their parents. I have this theory that kind of every kid assumes their parents are the best parents in the world until one crucial, pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And it's not even like my parents are flawless. I think every kid probably thinks their parents are the worst too, the second they get disciplined or whatever. But there are specific things I think that kids, even as they become adults, think about their parents or esteem their parents as being good at. That there is that kind of glass shattering moment. You know, there's the episode of is it How I Met Your Mother where they all like the illusion is shattered basically of something they always thought about themselves or thought about other people. Do you remember like a moment where like your illusion of one of your parents and one of their skills was shattered? Because I'd like to share one of mine with all of our listeners, both at home and abroad. And
why don't you start?
I think that, okay.
I have a moment, but you're in the groove, so go for it.
We moved in, when I moved in with the Flores family, and I want to say that Charity and I were married. I don't remember the exact date. Maybe I just moved to California and I was over at the house for dinner one night. I remember walking into our in-laws' kitchen, and our father-in-law, the great Pastor David Flores, who is, by the way, basically a Michelin chef. I mean, both really of our in-laws are phenomenal cooks.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in and seeing him mashing potatoes. And I said, "Hey, what are you making?" And our father-in-law, one of the kindest men on the planet, looked at me utterly confused, like,
what do you mean, what am I doing?
Only YouTube viewers will get this. He looks at me like, "I'm making mashed potatoes."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, cool. Pull my phone out. How do you make mashed potatoes?" I had only ever had mashed potatoes from a box with flakes in it.
No one had actually mashed the potatoes.
I mean, to me, it was like, why do we call them mashed potatoes? Back in the old days, you know, like before we had space food, we ate them this way. Now we're far more advanced. It tastes better. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, my mom isn't a good cook at all. And I know she's listening. And so I want to say, sorry, Mom. It's not that I don't think you're a good cook. It's just that these mashed potatoes were infinitely better than the ones from the box. And that was an illusion shattering moment for me, because I remember growing up being like, oh, my mom, she's a great cook. She cooks everything from scratch. In my mind, my mom made everything from scratch, even though I watched those dehydrated potato flakes go into the boiling water. It just, in my mind, and I think it might be for a lot of kids, it's like, my mom's best cook in the whole world. My dad's can beat up your dad. He's faster than any of the other dads. And then there's a certain point where you like see your old man like huffing and puffing in a 5K, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I it's this like illusion shattering moment where your parents kind of become human for once, and it's not a bad thing. But it is interesting. It's kind of like a coming of age, like a rite of passage thing that happens when you realize your parents are not actually like your mom is not most capable, undiscovered culinary genius, just waiting for Gordon Ramsay to discover her.
She's one meal away from opening that restaurant.
She's just one. And the truth is like, I remember my mom, like, I mean, but it's the lens that you see your parents through because they're your parents. Yeah. My mom would like, I mean, God bless us, we were poor. She'd open the cabinets and say like, all right, this is what I got. I'm going to dump it on some frozen chicken in a crock pot, and hopefully these flavors work. And I was like, she's a genius.
She's a wizard. That's right.
Like olives, tomatoes, chicken.
Yeah.
Done. I'm there. Yeah, let's do this.
And that was
I'm like, wow. Yeah. What was yours? What was the moment?
My dad, I think the first time that I realized like he was want to say this tactfully, not as great as I thought he was probably whenever I was about like 16. And he was always my coach in high school. I played basketball from
Shout out Coach Hale.
Shout out to Coach Hale. Coaching over, as a matter of fact, I am going to give a quick shout out here to Coach Hale, because Dad just got a new gig and is now working at oh man, I got to say this right. He's working at Richard King High School. Is the girls coach 5A school in Corpus Christi. So shout out Coach Hale.
Shout out Coach
homie's
Hale.
Homie's got over 30 years of coaching experience. So racks on racks, Dad. Anyways, the first time I remembered where I realized that this guy was not like invincible is I feel like the persona of him really was emphasized because I went to a very small school. I went to a very small church. We had, a lot of the friends I saw at church, I saw at school, very small community. So we were all very well intertwined. And I think Pops coached me. I feel like Pops probably coached me from the time I was like in 6th grade and started playing like middle school basketball at the school all the way until I was a senior in high school. And because of the nature of the size of my school, I was the largest high school class in my school's history. I finished 4th in my class. I had a class of 7.
Bottom half, bro.
Yeah, bottom half. Still couldn't get. Yeah, that's
actually squarely in the middle.
Yeah, but I tell people all the time I finished 4th in my class, and nobody can ever take that away from me. Anyways, back to the story.
Doesn't exist, so it's not like they can call for verification.
No, the school closed. So there's no way to check that. But anyways, I always thought Pops was like invincible, and he could get out on the court with a bunch of us, and he could like he could show us a move on the court. There's coaches that can like teach you how to do it, and then there's other coaches that can like show you how to do it. And he was still young and young enough where he could get out there and show us a few moves, and he could show us how to play. And I must have been about 16. So I had been, all of our friends, he had coached the same 7 or 8 of us going from 6th grade on. And I remember asking him one day, we were at the school, and I was like, I want to race you, Dad. And he was like, you want to race me? And he's like, I'm not going to race you. I'm a 40-year-old man, or however old he was. I don't know. He's like, I'm not going to race you. And I was like, come on, I need to race you. Like, I want to race you. And we raced, and I beat him. And that was I really did not want to win that race. I was really crushed because I remember thinking like in my mind, like I beat him easily. Like, Dad, I'm sorry if you're listening to this and that it brings you down. But that particular race, which was outside in the school parking lot, like I beat him easily. And I think it was a moment for him too, where he was like, oh, like,
yeah. Like, did he give you the big piece of chicken that night at dinner?
Yes. It was just a big moment. It was like, oh, this guy is like, he was still like kind of like my hero or whatever. Like he was still kind of like Dad, and he could do, but I also realized I was like, well, he's not Iron Man. Like, I mean, he's cool. He's my dad and everything, but like,
that's the freaking Flash. He can beat anybody.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's not a superhero. He's just a hero. But it was a good moment for me. I was probably a little too old, I think, to, before I should have had that moment. He also played in a basketball game. We did like a staff versus students game, and they allowed all the students to like have their parents come play with the staff. And everybody was excited for him to play, and he ended up playing. And I think he dropped. This was a staff student game. My dad was over 40. And I remember in this game, homie dropped like 42 points. He was bonkers. And I was just like, I might have been like, I don't know.
That's my dad.
Yeah, it was one of those. I might have been like in 9th grade or something like that. But dude was laid up for the rest of the week. He was icing knees, and he had heat warmers on his back and a weighted blanket, and Mom was bringing him like ice packs. I was like,
I tell you, it's so interesting because we're talking about this, and the first thought coming in my mind is like, when is my son going to realize this about me? And then the more daunting question is like, has he already at 6 years old determined like, like my dad? I mean, oh,
bro, I have to tell you this moment, and I know I just went on a story, but I just had this first moment with my kid. So I'm changing a light bulb in his room, and there's the cover for the light bulbs, and then there's the chain that hangs from the ceiling fan that you pull and it turns the light on, and then there's the short one that turns the fan on and all that kind of stuff. So I got the light bulb changed, but I have the cover off, and now what I have to do is I have to feed the chain through the little hole in the cover, but I also have to balance the top of the thing, the top of the pole, or the top of the ceiling fan, so that it doesn't fall down while trying to thread it through with my right hand. And I just couldn't do it. It was in his bedroom. I must have been working on that thing for 15 minutes. And he was like, Daddy, what do you need to help? And I'm like, get the stepladder and climb up to the stepladder as tall as you can. And I need you to put your hands up here. And I need you to hold this in place. And he did it. And it was the first time in our relationship, father, son, 8 years old, where I legitimately needed his help, and he legitimately offered his help to me, succeeded, and we accomplished the task together. And then afterwards, he was like, I really thought you could do that. It's like, you're grounded
what a
indefinitely.
Stab.
Yeah, but he was like, I thought you could do it. I didn't know that you were going to need help.
So you feel like 8 years old. Jax is 8 now. You feel like he's at least like marginally helpful at this point.
He really is. That's a good age. I mean, Peyton is like self-sufficient, but she's not helping the family, and there's a difference between that. Like Jax can like fold socks now, like he can do laundry.
Wow.
He can run the dishwasher. He can unload the dishwasher.
Oh my gosh.
Reload the dishwasher, put a tablet in, and start the dishwasher.
Dude, I've got college students that are not
really
capable.
Yeah. I mean, he can contribute to the family in some ways. Peyton is
Joel cannot.
But neither can Peyton. She just is self-sufficient. They only care about themselves.
Joel, well, I feel like Joel would be more. Here's the most I've gotten out of Joel. Joel, can you bring me that remote control? Brings me the wrong remote control. The other remote control. Loses interest in the task.
Yeah.
At least he made a valiant effort. And I've asked him this several times. He always brings me the wrong one. And I keep saying like, no, the other one. And at some point I'll be like, I've never wanted this remote control. We don't even have this TV anymore. Like, I don't even know what it's doing here. He can throw stuff away. He's pretty good at opening the door for the dog. Our dog is very well trained. Like, she will walk to the door and stick her face on it until someone comes and opens it for her. Yeah. And so
did you do the training of that, by the way?
We did not. We got our dog. She was already trained. She was older when we got her. I got to tell you, I will never get a dog that's not trained ever again. Yeah. I am spoiled. I can count on one hand the amount of accidents this dog has had. I mean, and we've left her home uncaged for like 8 to 9 hours. And she holds it. She doesn't destroy anything in the house. We come home. She comes to greet us at the front door. Then she runs to the back door and waits for somebody to come and open it. I mean, she's phenomenal.
My dogs are terrible. I put 3 puppy pads in our playroom this morning just in case nobody got to the door fast enough. And my dog's pretty much, somebody dropped a deuce nowhere near the puppy pad. I'm like, make an effort, bro. Like, you've been in our house for 11 years.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when you first got those dogs, which I think is a story for the podcast at some point in time. Those dogs were purchased via Craigslist.
Yep. Like many things in my life.
Yeah. Maybe that's a segment we should bring in. Steven's best offer up / Craigslist finds. I still have not been able to pull off anything successful on Craigslist.
It's an unusual anointing that I possess, and I'm proud of it.
I'm lucky if I strike.
I just got my new car offer up. The car that we just bought, offer up.
How did you feel about the video on last week's episode?
I thought
embedded into, wasn't it top notch?
I mean, the type of editing skills that went into that, the amount of time. I mean, I'm watching a lot of TV right now, but that goes right to the top of the list as far as some of the cinematic adventures that I've been on.
I've been contacted by some other companies wanting to know,
really,
if I'm available for hire for
any freelance work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to be in the MCU as an editor pretty soon. Working in iMovie.
Working in iMovie from my iPhone. Hey,
what's the new Avengers edited in? It's just iMovie. It's just like, some basic filters.
Hey, do you see this little guy over my shoulder right here?
Is that your Elf on the Shelf? Yeah. I was going to ask about that.
Do you guys do Elf on the Shelf?
We don't. Although I will say, and spoiler alert for any kids listening right now.
If you're listening in the car with your kids, turn it off right now.
We're going to say some things right now. This is the first year that Joel has had a Santa Claus awareness. And public school. I mean, that's my only explanation, really, because he had no interest whatsoever before this. And Charity tried explaining to him, like, buddy, Santa Claus is make believe, like SpongeBob. Oh,
you just started there.
Yeah, she did.
Oof.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay. Tell him not to ruin it for my kids, because kids,
Joel's very
they believe.
Well, here's what you need to know. Joel is very literal. And so we thought that it would be tough for him to kind of wrap his mind around the concept of Santa Claus. But we knew other kids were going to be talking about it. And so I think our goal was to tell him, like, hey, buddy, it's make believe, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if people like Santa Claus. You don't have to tell them about, like, what you believe or what you know. Just, it's cool, man. It's chill. Somehow or another, though, he is now fully convinced that Santa is real and that we are jerks for trying to tell him otherwise.
That's really funny.
He straight up told me last night, because he came and he asked me, because I guess he'd had a conversation with Charity about it and he'd been stewing on it for a minute. And so he came and talked to me last night. He goes, Dad, you know Santa's real, right? I said, well, bud, I mean, there's a lot. And then I found myself getting defensive. I was like, I mean, there's a lot of different theories out there, Like,
I mean, there was an actual Saint Nicholas.
I started doubting myself, like what I knew to be true. And he's like, no, Mom said Santa is make believe like SpongeBob, but she is wrong. I was like,
you know this, right? I need you on my side.
Yeah, he's like, it was like he needed me to know something. He was concerned about something that I falsely believed, and so.
That's really good.
Just, I'm pretty sure he's real. That's what he just kept saying. I'm pretty sure he's real.
I'm pretty sure he's real.
I was like, oh man,
that's good.
So we're I guess we're just gonna go with it and see where it lands us.
So
because there's no convincing him otherwise at this point in time.
So the Elf on the Shelf, my kids believe more, I think, in the Elf on the Shelf than maybe they do Santa. I think that Jax has hit that window where there's obviously people that are like, Santa's not real. And he's like, yes, it is. As long as you believe in your heart, he's real. And it's like, so he's kind of in that way. Peyton's still a little bit out in left field. She'll believe anything. I mean, you can come up to Peyton and tell her, tomorrow the fairy godmother's going to show up on your front porch and she'll go do her hair and put on a nice nightgown. But as far as the elf is concerned, it's a very real thing. Now, I want to tell you this. I appreciate where we've evolved as a society to kind of expand Christmas traditions and activities. And I think the Elf on the Shelf was one of those things. We were getting, I didn't have Elf on the Shelf growing up, but I remember we were getting a little stagnant as a culture.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah,
okay, it's just Santa. And the only thing I have to do is go down to the mall and wait in line to see Fatso and his fake beard. Like, I know you're not the real Santa, but maybe you work for him and you could talk to him for me. But we introduced the Elf on the Shelf, and it's kind of a cool concept. You're supposed to, you get the Elf on the Shelf, you give him a name, like a family name. So looking over my shoulder here is Marvin the Elf. We named him Marvin because my kids could not agree on a name. And so I picked the name, and that's a lot of times that's how we resolve conflict in our family. But anyways, Marvin the Elf,
makes a lot of sense.
He works from Santa. I send the kids frequent text messages throughout the year from my work phone, which they don't have the number to, pretending to be Marvin, that I'm watching them. So when they do bad things, I'm like, "Oh, Jackson, I heard your daddy was upset with you because you didn't clean your room."
On.
Yeah. So Marvin keeps a watchful eye, but then the way that it works is he comes, and every night when the kids go to bed, he posts up somewhere in the house and he doesn't move. And the thing is the kids can't touch him because it will change his magic. So all kids know you're not ever supposed to touch Marvin. So he moves or touch any of the elves. Here's the problem, though, that most parents don't realize whenever they get an elf on the shelf. You have to remember to move this little dude every day, because the kids wake up early to find out where this elf has moved to. My kids are up they're up at 6:15, and the first thing they do is run around the house to see where this elf is. So we put him up recently. It was like the second day. I don't remember what the kids did, but fortunately, the night before they went to bed, they had both gotten in some trouble, and I had an excuse. But we forgot to move him. And we woke up the next day, and they went to go look for him, and he was in the same spot. And that was a big no-no. They were like, he didn't move. And I'm like, well, why didn't he move, guys? Do you know why? And my wife is.
And then you got to think on the fly.
Yes. And fortunately, my daughter was like, it's because we were bad last night. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, maybe that's why. He saw you and he wasn't going to move because you guys are bad. Well, let me just tell you guys, maybe you don't like the way that I'm manipulating my children or the way that I'm raising my children. But since that moment, we've had clean bedrooms. We've had respectful children. We have had people cleaning up their messes and doing their dishes. So things are going great in my house for the last week since we forgot to move, since Marvin the Elf relocated. So
did you happen to see my reel on Instagram of Joel meeting Santa at his?
I do believe
his school had a drive-through situation where they had a little Christmas light display or something, I guess. And Joel, again, who is now fully convinced Santa's real.
Yeah.
And cannot be told otherwise. Joel met Santa. So here's that encounter.
We're good.
Everything good this year?
Yeah.
Are you ready for Christmas?
Yes.
Are you excited?
Yes.
Me too. It's my favorite day. Can you be good for 22 more days?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming to see me.
Merry Christmas.
Can you be good for 22 more days?
He goes,
Like, yeah, we'll
and
see.
then we drive out of there, and that same night he's like, Dad, remember I told you Santa was real? I was like, yeah, bud, I remember. Remember because we met him tonight. Yeah, we did.
I was there.
My bad. Yeah, I mean, it's a very it's unique. This is the first year Joel's cared about it. So it's the first year he's cared about Christmas in general, to be honest with you. And that's a huge step forward for him. Obviously, everything we've been through with the autism and kind of that journey.
Does he have an opinion on the tree?
He wanted to decorate it, and he had some opinions about certain ornaments. We kind of got into, do you guys natural tree or do you artificial?
Oh no, we're real trees through and through. We don't ask. That wasn't a debate for us. We both believe in the power of new trees. Plus, I like to throw it away and not store it all year. That's the number one reason why I use real trees, is because I don't want to store it for a full year.
I believe in the power of fake, and
the recycling anointing.
Our little guy I'm probably year 4 of 5 for us, maybe more than that. Actually, I feel like we've had this tree since we got married. This might be our longest owned purchase. I'm I'm struggling
It's
to
your
remember when we
longest
bought this
owned
tree.
piece of property.
But we might actually, I don't remember when we bought it, but it's like a 6-foot, fake thing. And our job where we work, our bosses, our pastors give us a Christmas ornament every year of a little church. So we have quite a few of those. We've got some little some Disney ornaments, things like that. Joel likes to go through a couple of times this week. He's pulled me to the tree and asked me about certain ornaments.
Mhm.
So that's been kind of cool. He is obsessed with Christmas lights. That is a new
that's
thing.
a thing.
And
Do you put up
fortunately, we live in
Christmas lights?
No, man.
You seem like a
Um,
guy that would go get out a ladder and hang your own Christmas lights. You put off that vibe.
I've thought about it. Maybe my ideal self does, but my
The
my
best
actual
version of
self,
yourself.
my real self, that guy doesn't.
Yeah.
And but what he does is take his kid to look at Christmas lights in the car.
And that's what a good dad does.
That's who I am. I'm a good.
Does your
good
wife
father.
ask you to? You're a good father. Does your wife ask you to put up Christmas lights? Is that something that she requests of you?
We've not ever had that conversation, to be
Oh,
honest with you.
okay,
At least
well,
not to my memory. I
Charity,
did
if you're
your
listening,
wife,
I did not mean to open up that can of worms.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to it, is the thing. I'm not opposed to a big Christmas hubbub.
Yeah.
I actually even thought, like, I saw these things on Amazon, you plug it in, it's like an inflatable, like a 30-foot high inflatable Santa. And I actually thought, like, that might be kind of interesting. What if we just did like a massive thing like that? There are several folks around that do the Christmas light installation. I just feel like I might seem like the kind of guy who would do it, but I probably also seem like the kind of guy who would do it and then fall off a ladder and break his back trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I just can't bring myself to injure myself. And
well, I have I love Christmas lights. I love having them on my house, and I love getting into the Christmas spirit. I refuse to hang my own lights. I'm not going to do it.
I saw that. I saw your wife posted that you hired somebody.
I did. I hired Jeremy, comes and hangs my Christmas lights. He has done it for the last 3 years. And the first time he came out, I found him again on Craigslist, offer up.
Wow.
And he came over to the house and he was like, "What Christmas lights do you have now?" And I gave him this old ratted out box that had holes in it. And I was like, "Here it is. Everything's in here." And he was like, "So this is horrible. I'm going to be honest with you. This is actually, these lights aren't even the same color."
Golly. Tell me what you really think, Jer.
Yeah, he was very honest. He's like, "I can make your house look good, but I would suggest you take all these decorations and donate them to Goodwill, and then we buy you new decorations that fit your size of house." And I was like, "Okay." So he went and we started fresh. It was about I think the first year was about $350 because he had to go buy new decorations. But now he comes the day after Thanksgiving, hangs up all my lights. They fit into one box. He folds them. He folds them every year and puts them away on the first Saturday after New Year's. So I don't do anything other than put a box on the shelf. That is the extent of my involvement with touching the Christmas tree lights.
And what do you pay Jeremy?
I pay him $200 to come to my house, hang all the lights. He puts them on a timer. He sets them to where they come on at a certain time and they go off at a certain time. He goes all the way to the front of my house. He wraps around the windows. He goes around I have a couple tree branches, not tree branches, shrubberies. Another shrubbery. Okay, Monty Python and the Holy Grail reference. He does a great job of it. And then he just he texts me the day after New Year's and he's like, "I'll come get your lights down." And I just leave the box out for him. He does it. Is the most painless $200 I spend all year long. And
so 200. So it's really 100 to put them up and 100 to put them down, if you want to think about it that way.
Right. And I mean, I could easily take them down. I'm sure that I could. I could probably easily put them up. Here's the thing. I don't want to.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't see that as being a worthwhile investment.
It's a chore.
Time.
It's a thing I have to do.
I got enough chores, to be honest with you.
So many chores.
That's not one I want to endeavor to add to the list. That's just not my
I'm worried
thing.
about the inside of my house. The outside of my house, I pay for those services. I pay a gardener, pay a Christmas tree light guy. I pay people to do my oil change. I pay people to wash my car. Like I don't wash my car. I take it to a place and somebody else washes my car. And I believe in the service industry. So, I'm actually
Supporting
doing things for
local
others.
business.
I'm in the holiday
I'm
spirit.
single-handedly stimulating this economy by paying other people to do stuff for me.
Thanks for nothing.
You're welcome,
Joe
everybody.
Biden.
Christmas presents from these people I pay.
Yeah, exactly. I paid Jeremy $200. He's efficient. And I give him every year I do it. 2 people send me a message on Instagram and they're like, who did your lights? They look great. I give him Jeremy's phone number and he gets a new customer. So,
that's one of my favorite things is referring people.
Oh, I know.
Like I am
a good referral.
I'm such a strong brand advocate, and there's probably something about being an Enneagram 3 in here, but I fully love like when somebody compliments me on anything in my life, I want to tell them who helped me get there. So I got somebody today told me, they're like, oh, hey, like your fade looked really good on TV yesterday. And I was like, I'll tell Jose, my barber.
Tell everybody, but yeah, I'm gonna make sure
like,
my barber knows.
If you need somebody in the DFW area, call Jose. He'll make your fade look just as good as mine. Or if somebody compliments my outfit, I'm like, thanks. I got it on sale. It was $11. Like I want people to know
Forever
about the
35
great thing that I'm using. Yeah. It's because I'm in the holiday spirit, but I'm in it all year long. I'm grateful that I found a great barber, and I want you to find a great barber as well.
That's true. It's all about the way of like people helping people, and I think that's how we make the world a better place.
Spirit of Christmas.
That's the spirit of Christmas. That and Jesus, but we all know that.
Hey,
what?
Baseball's locked out. Did you know that?
I saw that. I was gonna mention that to you. You called it. You said we were hours away from a lockout. How do you feel about that?
It's boring is the thing. I don't think we'll have any loss of games. Baseball,
who's going to win? And why are they locked out?
They're locked out because the owners are greedy and so are the players. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. The owners lost a bunch of money during a pandemic.
They want to
players
recoup
all
that
had guaranteed contracts
at the expense of the players.
Yeah, and so they're trying to do creative things to penalize players. I don't know if we talked about this before, but the arbitration system is kind of jacked
pretty
up.
wild.
They want to use advanced metrics to kind of eliminate the arbitration process. You're basically team owned for a certain amount of time. They want to extend the amount of time that they own the player, and then they want to, instead of having an arbitration where the player comes, presents their case, the owner comes, presents their case, they basically want to use some advanced stats and a formula to determine what a salary should be during those times.
I don't like that. I don't like when you have an analytics that when you have an analytic that determines any person's salary. This is not exclusive to baseball. This is exclusive to like every industry in the world. Our analytics say that you're worth X amount of dollars. I don't care if you're at Taco Bell or Taco Palace or the Texas Rangers, Major League Baseball. Analytics should not determine personal worth in any stretch of the imagination.
And what it feels like is the owners trying to stick it to the players a little bit because in negotiating a lot of these massive contracts, and we talked about Corey Seager last week and his $325 million 10-year deal with the Texas Rangers.
What's the tithe off that?
$32.5 million. Come see us, Corey. We'd love to have you.
There's a church in America that needs to get that guy saved. Just saying.
Come on. Hello. Hey, Corey. Come on home to family, okay?
Shameless plug.
Let's go. thebridgedfw.com. There's a thing where the agents started analytics moved so quickly. Advanced stats in baseball in particular are such a moving target.
Yeah.
That it's like all of a sudden, no, wins and losses don't matter for a pitcher. Right. Batting average is now less important than on base percentage. And if you've seen Moneyball, I mean, it's like Moneyball on crack.
Yeah, you're paying for runs. You're paying for
what we're getting. Absolutely. On base, runs, slugging percentage. The big stat in baseball is OPS, which is on base plus slugging. Basically saying how often do you get on base, and when you get a hit, is it for multiple bases? So they've got all these advanced stats that the agents have been using to sell their players as, worth more money. And it was originally how there was a competitive advantage from teams like the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays, who had much smaller payrolls, and would say, okay, well, we can get a competitive advantage by saying we're going to go find these guys that maybe the rest of the league doesn't value as much as they should, fill our team with these on smaller contracts, and then we'll build a winner at a lower payroll. Well, then agents and players started getting smart to that and saying like, oh no, these are the metrics that they're using. These are the metrics we're going to charge for. And so now we're at this place where the owners were like, oh, you guys want to be paid because of wins above replacement, which is kind of this standard stat.
Right.
It's almost made things like the MVP just not even competitive, because you just know at the end of the year, like, okay, well, the guy with the highest wins above replacement is the most valuable player. Shohei Ohtani was basically 10 extra wins for his team this year, even though his team sucked.
Yeah. That analytics in general bother me. I had an argument. It's been a while, but I was having an argument one day with somebody about a player in the NBA, and I was talking about how good this particular player was. And I want to say it was somebody like Bradley Beal, or I don't remember who it was, but I was saying something like, oh yeah, they shoot 41% from the 3-point line. I said some stat like that. And they were like, yeah, but his true shooting percentage is only da-da-da. And I'm like, so I went and looked at what true shooting percentage, and I'm like, true shooting percentage, basically his 3-pointers, his regular field goal attempts, and his free throws all rolled into like one stat. And I'm like, you're not going to sit here and tell me that this guy is not a good 3-point shooter, because for 6 weeks, in a row, he shot like he had a slump at the free throw line. And so it brought down the season average over here.
True shooting.
To his true shooting. I was like, analytics has ruined. That was one of the best things Charles Barkley said. It ruined basketball, but I think it's ruined all these other sports too.
It's definitely ruined baseball for me.
I see the value in it, but the headache of it is not worth it.
And even like, we're taking some of the fun out to me.
Yes.
A lot of what like these advanced stats do is they try to isolate performance from the ballpark that the player plays in. So for instance, this was a big class of free agent shortstops. One of the shortstops in the free agent market is a guy named Trevor Story. Trevor Story has played in Colorado for the entirety of his career. The air is thinner. The ball flies farther. Yep. And when you look at his home road splits, it seems as if he's a much better player in Colorado than he is anywhere else.
Go figure.
Which is something, if you're investing millions of dollars, you probably want to know.
Sure.
Like, okay, if I take this guy to a pitcher's park, and that's what baseball's different, man. Basketball, it's the same length of court.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rim is the same height, no matter what. In football, 100 yards is 100 yards. But in baseball, you'd be like, we decided down left field, it's only going to be 311 feet. And we're just going to stack our team with a bunch of.
And that's the new rule now.
You can just decide.
You just do that.
I mean, 90 feet to first base, second, third, home, 60 feet, 6 inches from home plate to the pitcher's mound. But everything else is kind of fair game.
Yeah, so, I wish the Lakers would just come out and be like, LeBron James's goal is now going to be 8 feet, but everybody else has to play on 10 feet rims.
My gosh, man, I was such a LeBron fan for such a long time, but at this point in time, I'm like, oh my God, go away.
Shout out to Enes Kanter Freedom, who's calling him out left.
Let me ask you a question. Are we saying that LeBron's body beats COVID faster than anybody else?
Oh my gosh.
LeBron only has to be in a COVID protocol for like 24 hours if there's a national game.
Like all I could think of when they were like, LeBron James has entered into health and safety protocols and will be out for 10 days. And then like the next day, they were like, LeBron James is clear at health and safety protocols. And everybody's over here defending this guy. And they're like, well, actually, the rule states that if you're vaccinated, then all you have to do is return 2 negative COVID tests in a 24-hour period. And I'm like, this sounds like the most Donald Trump thing ever, to be like, the doctors have never found a body that has beaten COVID as fast as mine. I was like,
Remember when Donald Trump said he didn't even have DNA? He didn't have DNA. He had
DNA
USA.
was USA. That was the funniest thing ever.
I miss that guy so much.
I know. Donnie T, man. I hope you're having a blast at Mar-a-Lago, but
life was just funnier. I hope Donald listens to our podcast.
Dude, I would love it. I would love to interview.
Hey, I know your name.
Don't want him to be president,
but you can come be on our show, Donald Trump.
We can issue a temporary name change.
We'll call it the Steven, and Donald show if you choose to come be a part of this. It could be epic.
We're at the end of time here. I have chores that I still have to continue to, but it's been a pleasure chatting with you as always.
I'm going on my first kindergarten field trip tomorrow, so can't wait to tell you all about that next week.
Yes, I want to unpack that on the podcast. So blessings be unto you.
Thank you very much.
All right, homies. Thanks everybody for listening. Let's give our sign off plug here. Yeah, good day, mates, to all of our folks across the pond. Hello, Governor. At the Hailstone, if you want to follow me on Twitter, Steven
at Steven Shelton, Instagram, Twitter.
The two Stevens on Instagram and Twitter, and email us at stevenandsstevenshow@gmail.com.
And I really want to ask, if you're listening from the UK,
if you're listening from the UK,
our Irish listener, please just get in. Just reach out to us and tell me how in the world you found us.
You can email, you can DM us on either Twitter or Instagram to our personals or to the regular account, or email us. If you are across the pond, we want to hear from you.
Our listening grows every single week, and it's growing.
Someone is sharing it there.
It's the craziest thing, and they probably hate us, but it's like they're making fun of us. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't care.
Two stupid Americans. You know what? Keep listening, because the sponsorship opportunities are going to start rolling in.
That's right. And when Ted Lasso's back, you're all going to love us again. All right.
Peace out.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.